Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, the practical shaman, and we're really excited to be here today. And of course, we have a very interesting topic. Well, we always think we have interesting topics. We hope you think so too. And if you do, make sure you like and subscribe and do all of those things. Um, but today we are talking about methods versus magic. I think that would be a good thing. And it comes to be about, like, just learning the methods of shamanism or whatever other thing you're following doesn't necessarily give you the juice in order to do the healing. And what we know as shamans is that you need that relationship with your spirit helpers, and that is everything. And I think Sandra has really drilled that home with me, like, yeah, if there's no magic, there's no shamanism.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I keep trying to teach in my workshops, I start in the beginning. It's not even an advanced workshop, it's the beginning workshops, is that methods have never healed anyone, and methods are not what shamanism is about. And so it's very frustrating for me to look at the shamanic Facebook pages where what's the method? What's the method to do this? What's the method to do that? What's the method to cure this? Those are the actual words people are using. And the bottom line is that when shamans around the world actually perform methods, it's all show. It's all show. It's showmanship. And there isn't a real shaman on the planet who will not admit to that. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not being dishonest, it's not lying. It's that shamans have always worked in the way that people are gonna respond to in order to heal. And so the more you can sing, the more you can grunt, that you're really merged with your, healing spirit, the bear, and some people grunt and some people roar when they do extraction work, and people always say, "Sandra, you don't do stuff like this." And I do whatever I can. I do a lot of singing, but I'm not a grunter. I don't growl. It's not my style. But you watch a lot of shamans do that, and it makes the client feel like something happened, and something did happen. Something actually did happen. It wasn't a lie, but what was happening was behind the grunting, behind the growling, behind the singing, there's an energy because, again, the shaman is just a hollow bone. So they're bringing through the spirits who, while you're doing all this stuff with your drum and rattle, the spirits are doing the work. And so the first thing I teach in my workshops is it's not methods that heal, it's the magic behind the methods that heal.
And I've always said spirit does not need shamans to heal you. And we know that. And I know that personally because some of my most profound healing moments have been isolated instances where things just happen. And I know, you've had those similar experiences where, your near drowning experience. There was no shaman standing on the beach. Now, Sandra, you go out there and drown, or, the time that I was dismembered in a lecture, there was no one like standing over me with the rattle. It just happened. And that's not to say that there wasn't space being held somewhere for it, but it's not always identifiable. And for me, I think I was telling I was telling you before we started that I was very clunky when I started. I needed the stick. I needed not only the stick for you, but the stick for me so that I knew, some methods that I could make you feel more comfortable as we went. And I didn't do it very well. And I think so sometimes learning a couple of basic practices is a good idea, but it's definitely not where you end up, and it's not really where the healing ever took place between me at when I'd be holding space for somebody else's spirit to come through and do their work.
Yeah, so, it's really, really, really important to set up sacred space, and a lot of people don't do that particular part, but it's actually how you do let the spirits know that important work is starting to happen, and a lot of people resist that. It's like, "I just wanna do the method," "I just wanna do the healing," and it's the setting up the space, it's the lighting the candle, it's the lighting the sage or, whatever you're using or whatever incense you're using. Those are the things that really attract the spirits, and those are the things that a lot of people really don't wanna work with at this particular point in time. And I think that the negative side of that, of not understanding the magic behind the method, is actually leading a lot of clients to AI because AI is kind of a neutral force that shows you love, shows you compassion. It might have all been downloaded from somebody's book, but they're safe. Um, but there's not the magic. The magic is missing. The magic behind the method is missing. But because there's so many people who are teaching online and just teaching method after method and leaving out the magic, the next step of that is I don't need a human. I'd rather work with a bot.
That's so true. When I first started going to the Inipi years and years ago, we'd get there like mid-afternoon and the fire never would really get lit to almost sundown. And what would we be doing? We'd be cleaning the grounds, we'd be setting the fire. And it wouldn't be until I was there for like a 2 or 3 years that I was even really shown how to lay the fire.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, I'm thinking like, what is this that I gotta take the blankets off every single time and fold them up neatly and stick them over there in the pile? Where is everybody else? Why am I the only one doing this? Yes, because I had to learn that if I was the only one doing, which was probably not even true, that I had to get over my little tantrums and my resentments about not understanding that folding and unfolding the blankets were as much as part of the ritual as getting in there with the heat and the steam and the songs. And I think you're talking about that missing idea, that method.
I am. I mean, just little things like I was teaching a workshop and I had assistants and nobody created sacred space before I got in. And it was really interesting because the group kind of stayed chaotic. Um, and I really saw that it was how we stepped into that space, how we stepped into that space and it's about when you put the back jacks down and when you put the chairs down. I used to do that all myself, and now people, help me out in my workshops to do it, but I actually did it with intention. I actually pictured people sitting there and I spaced them out exactly right and never had more chairs or back jacks in a circle, and we were gonna have people. It's the little attention to detail. You can bring magic in just by doing that one thing, and, what you're saying, Renee, folding the blankets back up after you're done. It is, it's all part of the ceremony, and it's not that people don't wanna do this, it's that they're not being educated to, the magic behind the work.
And maybe it's the timing thing because lucky for me, I was the prep cook first, and I had to learn to cut the batonettes the same way all the single time, every time, same size. The chef would come by and, slap your fingers if you didn't right. And you were a baker, so you had to learn about measuring the ingredients and putting them in there and working them a certain way. And, now people go online. I mean, I was so excited when I did the online ceremony and, 200 people registered and 50 people showed up live and it didn't record.
Right.
Not record. It was like, yeah, no, those other 150 people, they're not going to be watching the ceremony later because what did I have to do when I wanted to learn, I'd have to show up early. I had to show up in person early. I had to stay there. I had to bring a dish to share afterwards. So it wasn't like, here's an hour teaching. It was like, here's a 6 hour block that you're going to show up every single Friday to do, for years.
Right.
Eh,
Yeah.
and so we've really spoiled people with these, yeah, get it quick.
Right. Yeah. And I think because our lives are really ruled, except for the people who have cut themselves off, which a lot of people are doing, and I think you and I are moving in that direction, um, who really cut themselves off from technology. If you're really still so involved in technology, the methods are always going to be more important to you than the magic because technology is gross, meaning it's dense.
Right.
It's not going to bring you to a higher place. And so it's shutting off the technology and letting spirit start to enter all the cells of your body again instead of all the news stories being in your cells or all the crazy emails in your cells or all the Facebook posts in your cells. You want spirit in your cells. And that's magic. And technology doesn't really allow that for us. And so we just need to find some balance in that. I'm not saying everybody needs to stop technology. We need to go back to the old days. I might, but not everybody's going to. But it is changing the world of shamanism.
And I've been noticing that, like, recently I've had a lot more students from, Europe, and we have, like, a WhatsApp group, and how I'm noticing is how they're taking, like, the Windwork basics, for example. What what's really clear is the people who just show up once a week to do the class, and then the people who show up all week to do the class.
Right.
And I think both Sandra and I, we've talked about it, that we're enjoying teaching the students who are showing up all week, all week long with their practices more than, the people who just, drop in. Because I don't know, I didn't just drop in. And I know you didn't just drop in.
Right.
And I think it's more what I've been really thinking about lately is when we go back to
Mm-hmm.
the essential of, I have this new fire pit that's teaching me lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this smithy out there in the yard has got like a personality I'm like the student. And I I get that. And I'm like, how do I serve? And how do I learn this? And what part of this, maybe I was so busy with the wind, I forgot the fire for a little while.
Well, I think we cycle in and out at learning from different elements. They all have so much to teach, and so um, I love helping the elements, and I know the elements love me. But I go through cycles where I connect with one more than another, for sure. But I really think that. I really think that in doing a lot of the in person and a lot of the preparation work does take people a lot deeper into the work. It brings more joy into our lives to connect in that particular way. and I think that we're all looking for a little bit more, joy because things are feeling pretty heavy right now. And when you do that preparation work, it is really joyful. When I was baking, I would bake all night. I couldn't sleep. My life wasn't that great. And so I always had things to worry about, so I didn't sleep. So I loved, um, I just loved working the kneading of the bread. And it took me out of my mind, and it just what was in my heart, so much love flowed into that bread that I never could make enough because people wanted it so badly. I couldn't make enough, and I knew what it was. It wasn't the bread because, um I'm not like you, Renee. I don't know how to decorate things or make things look nice that you eat. Everything looks so funky that I made. It was unbelievable. But everybody wanted it. Everybody. I was up all night just making things for people, cakes and breads and cookies and muffins. And it was a way for me to put love into everything that I made, and people healed from that. That was the magic. It wasn't the bread, it wasn't what I was making. It was my only channel for love.
Mhm. Yeah, one time I was at a catering and this guy came to the restaurant, and then I ran into him at Wegmans, and he's there like he goes, "Oh, I was at your place last night, and it just wasn't the same," and I'm there like, "But he's following my recipe to the T," and he goes, "But Renee, you cook with love." And and that is just so true. I happen to live on an island where there's a organic farm school, and so there's a lot of farmers who stay on the island, and I take the time to go around to the different farm stands to get the fresh beets with the little greens on them and and the carrots, because I feel nourished when I eat this food that these people are growing with full intention, and that's that's no different than putting your your energy into the tools that you can learn through classes, but it's that unami, unami, is that the word? Where it's that 5th something special that comes together that aligns the whole entire thing with this God self that's we have available to us.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's beautiful, and seeing our shamanic tools as alive and allies that we use. I remember, we were talking on another show, and you were talking about how you went back to your young self, and we were also talking about, how we're both finding that when we were younger, there was a lot more wisdom coming through us. I actually recently did a post on Facebook around that I'm reading my old books because I'm finding my younger self had so much more wisdom than I do right now. So I'm going back and retrieving that old wisdom. But where that old wisdom came from was I would pack my rattle in a very, very sacred cloth and, pack it in a very sacred shoe box that I've had for over 40 years now that have it's a shoe box that has flowers on it. Shoes I bought 40 years ago in a special bag, and it was really a big deal for me back when I first started teaching to pack up my rattle and unpack it, and how I did all of that, and how much attention went into that. I mean, just how much attention went into that. Now I just grab a rattle and pick it up, and there's a difference.
Mhm.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, it's so funny because when I was doing the ceremony for the solstice, this this student of mine gave me this beautiful hand woven basket that had been sitting on the top of the shelf for a long, long time. And I've decided to unpack a box that I put and I started to go through it, and with that same thing you're talking about where I'd look, "Oh, that's that bell Sandra gave me a long time ago," and I gave it a little ring, and then I put it in the carrying basket, and then I brought that basket down to the fire, and I thought to myself, "Who knew that this was gonna be my medicine bag?"
Right.
And for now, it will never be sitting back up on the top of the shelf unless there's a reason for it, but it just found its place yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Yes,
That's
right, and I was loving on that idea.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with, I know that people are really, stressed right now financially, and this has nothing to do with money. You know, back when I was teaching, I always had a car I can sleep in. That's how broke I was. I was one step away from homelessness that whole entire time. So when we're talking about creating sacred space and taking special care of our rattles and putting it in the special shoebox, this isn't about money. This isn't about having money. It's about how do you take care of your tools or how do you make your tools with heart so that they carry the method that goes far be they carry the magic that goes far beyond the method, and that's the point of what we're trying to say.
Right, so I think we've rattled this point home,
Yeah.
and you kinda could get the message that, yes, systems are good, but that's not what we need right now. We need all of the people listening to this to remember the magic, to remember to tap back into that magic because I think all of this chaos and all of this noise is designed to keep us from remembering our magic. And the way to remember it is to go back to the old ways you did things, to stop with that negative self-talk that we talked about in our last show, and to start to look at your tools again with a lot more reverence, and how you show up to do anything is how you show up to do everything.
That's beautiful, Renee. I think that's the perfect ending. I don't think I can add anything to that. So thank you, and thank you, everyone, and blessings. And thanks for listening to our show and subscribing and telling others about it. And we love you.
Mm, thank you.